What's up, Collider TV Talk fans? Josh Macuga here with Thadd Williams, and Emma Fyffe is back. Emma, welcome back to the show.
Thank you. I'm
love
very happy
here.
to be here to just wrap up the year of television in a good, strong way.
This is our last official TV Talk episode with like news and such. And then Thadd and I will be doing, which is going to air on Friday the 29th. Would that be?
28th. You're close.
28th.
Friday the 28th.
December 28th. Thadd and I are doing like a year-end awards review where we'll be just fighting about things that we really like. There's no negative awards. It's all positive awards. I know a lot of people kind of do like worst thing that happened of the year. Thadd and I are all about positivity these days,
I feel
Emma.
like that's the way it should be. Like, let's focus on the positive. There's enough negative out in the world that we should just really
accentuate the positive.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly.
So before we get into
Maybe
the
sing
news,
a little song
they
about
should write
it.
a song about that.
Before we get into the news, Emma, what was some of like your favorite things in TV of the year?
Oh man. Okay, so I finally started watching Schitt's Creek this year.
That is a great show.
I'm not all the way caught up, but
Okay.
it is so freaking good. And I know they just had their holiday special on Wednesday this week, which I haven't watched because again, I'm not all the way caught up. But
It's one of those shows that is buried because it's on a network that nobody watches.
Right, exactly.
Right?
And I think that's the thing is like obviously I've watched it on I guess Netflix.
I think it's Netflix.
I'm pretty sure it's Netflix.
Yeah, me too.
But yeah, I just oh my god,
It's
it is so
fantastic.
funny and like.
And that's Eugene Levy's
That's what
son.
I was gonna say. Literally, what I was just about to say is
sorry.
Eugene Levy's son Dan is so unbelievably funny.
Yeah.
I mean, the whole cast is fantastic, but
genes.
he's such a standout.
Yeah, for sure.
And it's one of those things where you're like, why is he not crazy famous?
So I did the DVD commentary with the Wangers for Home Alone 2 last night, and obviously Catherine O'Hara is in all the Home Alones, and she's in Schitt's Creek.
Outstanding in
She
Schitt's
is
Creek.
so funny in Schitt's Creek. She does this voice that it sounds so fake, but I know that somebody in the world has this voice.
Yeah.
And that show is pretty brilliant.
Yeah,
pretty
I love
brilliant.
that. I mean, The Good Place is always such a standout
That's a
for
Thadd
me.
and our favorite.
I freaking love that show.
Yeah.
What else was really good this year?
Anything in like the anime kingdom that really stood out besides like My Hero
I was
Academia?
going to say My Hero continues to be extremely, extremely strong, and My Hero also had their first theatrical film this year as well. And most anime movies are not great, particularly because what they tend to do is either try to retell the entire season or series in a single movie, or they're a side story that really is insignificant and just fan service, but that was not the case with the My Hero movie. The My Hero movie was excellent.
Interesting. Okay.
So yeah, that continues to be a super strong series for me. I really loved She-Ra and the Princesses of Power. That was a nice little surprise. Obviously, I'm a little
talked about it there on
biased,
the-
because I'm friends with the showrunner.
Yeah,
but you know, it's a really fun reinterpretation of that show, and it really embraces these characters that have a lot of differences and flaws, but ultimately are good people.
And you, speaking of like friends of showrunners, the showrunners for Voltron have been into Collider a few times, and we're going to get into the fan outrage of Voltron later.
Because holy moly, but yeah, that'll be later in the show. And then of course, Marvelous Mrs. Maisel. I mean, come on. It's so weird
I'm
to
on
me.
my second viewing. I'm on episode 4 of my second time around.
It's so strange to me that there are people that don't like that show.
I've never met one.
I've met a few people. I've actually met some writers that don't like it. But I think you either love the way the dialogue and the kind of theatrical storytelling that they devices that they use, or you can't stand it. Right. I think there's no.
It's like
middle.
a Sorkin-ish kind of a thing.
It is.
Right?
It is. It's very Sorkin-esque.
Sorkin, Gilmore Girls. I mean, obviously Gilmore Girls, but like you either love it or hate it. And I think there are definitely some that just don't. They can't get into it at all.
Yeah.
And then everyone else
flips for it.
You know, another show
There's no gray area.
that I think is kind of like that was also a real highlight for me this year was Chilling Adventures of Sabrina. I loved Chilling Adventures of Sabrina, but that one I also I get more with that one than Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, why people don't like it, because to me, Sabrina is what Riverdale actually wants to be, but without the constraints of it being on the CW, because it's a Netflix show, so it can get a little darker and weirder, but it's still over the top and cheesy and takes place in this weird fantasy kind of, we don't really know what time period it is. But
I watched the pilot of that show, and I knew as soon as the pilot was over, I knew like 20 minutes in the show, this wasn't a show for me, and that's fine, and that's what the beautiful part of TV is that there was so much to watch. We can all enjoy something.
Absolutely.
And I also like the the acronym for Chilling the Chaos.
Oh yeah, Chaos.
Because I saw Allison Keene, who has 3 awesome articles right on now on Collider.com for best performances, best episodes, best shows of the year, and she didn't put any constraints on it. She went through all of them, and I will say that girl watches some shows I've never heard of. Legitimately, I'm the host of the show and never heard of them. But I went through the pilot, and my 2 problems with that. One, I get it. Like I never really liked Riverdale much as I sort of lied on TV Talk 1.0. I'll be honest with you. I lied about 2 things. I lied about liking season 1 of Westworld just so fans would stop tweeting me about it. And I lied about liking Riverdale. I get it.
Yeah.
I think if I was 17, I'd love it because I'd be like, man, do I love the girls in Riverdale.
Right.
But I'm a 36-year-old man, so I don't think that's for me. Also, I have such a problem getting past the fact that that's Sally Draper, right?
That's fair.
I only knew her as Sally Draper. And she was the worst. Until the last 2 seasons.
I think she was one of the best young actresses of the last 15 years.
She's outstanding.
Great actress.
Yeah.
I hated Sally Draper.
You didn't like the character.
Correct.
That's fair.
Yes.
She also did the voice of Jinora, one of the characters in Legend of Korra, which is the sequel series to Avatar: The Last Airbender, and she was such a great character on that show. So I think I associate her with that, even though it was just her voice, to a certain degree of like, okay, she hasn't just done Mad Men,
right?
Or Flowers in the Attic.
I was just gonna say that terrible redo of Flowers in the Attic. Oh my god!
I don't think you could do a good redo of Flowers in the Attic.
It's not the best story, but.
I thought you were going in Flowers for Algernon.
Not Flowers for Algernon. Flowers in the
Attic.
Attic.
Different flowers.
Do you know Flowers in the Attic?
I don't.
Oh boy.
Give me 30 seconds on Flower in the Attic.
Well, basically, it's about these kids who live with their mom, and their dad is dead, and she like remarries, and they have to basically go live in the attic, and they're kept there, and they're kept sheltered. And the long and the short of it is,
book?
No. Because then the kids end up
murdering the parents.
No, sleeping together.
Sleeping together.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So it's some lighthearted child.
it's the same author that wrote My Sweet Audrina, and all of her books are like that.
Interesting.
Yeah.
She may have loved her brother or something like that.
I mean, maybe.
Did you guys ever read the short story Rose for Emily in school? Do you guys ever remember that?
Oh, that sounds sort of familiar.
It was your
It sounds
first.
like one of the things I was supposed to read in school and didn't.
So it was like I feel like it was in English, maybe like 7th or 8th grade, and it was like we had a book of short stories, and each day you had to read a short story and then talk about it, right? And there was a story, Rose for Emily, and it was my first introduction to necrophilia. And I remember reading it and thinking at the end, I was like, is she banging the dead guy? Like, I didn't think that this was a thing.
Sure.
I was in 7th grade. I was a conservative kid outside Pittsburgh. We didn't talk about necrophilia at dinner or anything. It wasn't whatever. And so we get to it, and he's like, so how did everyone feel? And I just raised my hand. I was like, just quick question. Is she having sex with the dead guy? And our English teacher, Miss Holman, was like, she is. And I was like, all right, I'm out.
I'm out.
This is the one where I'm going to go to the bathroom. You can give me detention. I'm not talking about this today. That's it.
You're the blackjack dealer, and his time is up. That's me.
And
that's my time.
The angry dealer comes in that takes everybody's money. Yes.
Cool that table.
Yeah.
All right.
So let's get into some stuff because we've got a full show here.
Yes.
But thank you for your update on 2018, Emma. You're the
you're
best.
very welcome.
We got a teaser trailer for season 4 of Billions, which.
Do you watch Billions?
No, I don't.
You would actually really like Billions. I'm telling you, you would.
I'll check it out.
It's heading into season 4.
Yeah.
But it's
30,
how long are the seasons though?
10 episodes?
Yeah.
10,
That's
12.
doable.
It's on Showtime.
Yeah,
yes. And it's basically they took half of Homeland and just Paul Giamatti and added it to it, and it's New York, it's finance, but it's like this cutthroat nature of subterfuge that is the real thing. And Paul Giamatti and Damian Lewis. Damian Lewis. I always think his last name is Lillard for some reason, but that's a basketball player for the Portland Trailblazers. They put on a masterclass of acting. Yeah, like it's fantastic.
And then Maggie Siff gets stuck in the middle of it, and she's incredible.
Oh, so good.
I love Paul Giamatti, and I worked on Saving Mr. Banks. I did background 3 or 4 days on that. A couple days at Disneyland, and then at Ontario Airport, which was supposed to be LAX in the '60s.
Sure.
And Paul Giamatti,
because they haven't updated Ontario since 1960.
Yeah, exactly.
Correct.
But I have to say that Paul Giamatti was one of those people that was not disappointing in real life. Like, he was so nice and just
Charismatic.
unassuming, and just a really, really cool guy.
That's awesome.
Billions is one of those like it's set in the world of finance, but it easily could be a mafia show.
Yes.
Like it's like the two warring families kind of thing.
Yep.
And Giamatti is kind of is on the side of the law, but he's not afraid to break the rules.
Yeah.
And then Damian Lewis is the financial guru that's kind of skirting around the legal ramifications of his own job.
Yes.
And then what's the guy's name from Breaking Bad that plays Damien's number 2?
Oh, well, his name is Wags, but he played Gail Beneke in Breaking Bad.
Yeah.
Oh yes.
Yes.
Oh, what
and
is
he
that
plays
actor's
Wags,
name?
and he is incredible in this show.
Yeah.
He adds that extra level of these guys are just cocky.
David
finance.
Costable.
Yes, there you go. And he is fantastic in the show
And
as well.
Asia Kate Dillon joined the cast last year, and they're the character that they came up with for Asia is just insane, and I love every single thing that they're doing on that show. So it's worth
cool.
checking out.
Yeah.
It's one of those shows that not a lot of people know about because I think Showtime.
I was going to say, I feel like
Sort
I've
of buries us
definitely
in there.
heard of
Right.
it before, but I have not checked it out yet.
It's sort of like Succession on HBO. It deals with the finance world, but it's more about the family dynamic of keeping things together.
Yeah.
And we're going into season 2 of Succession. A couple people were nominated for Golden Globes, Emmys from that show. I loved Succession, and Billions is along like the same line. So if you like that kind of like family dynamic kind of show, this is the thing. But we got a teaser trailer for season 4.
Comes back in March.
And I yelled at the end of the trailer. I was like, March! Like, at least I have True
far
Detective
away.
starting January 13th to take me up to March.
Yes.
So that's fine. But this trailer was pretty great because
Star Trek Discovery Season 2, January 17th.
yes,
I know you're looking forward to that.
Yeah, Macuga's favorite show.
Huge fan.
Yeah.
Huge. I am discovering parts of me that I didn't know
Oh
were part.
no.
I was going for a pun there.
Nope,
That's my bad.
nope.
What do you think of the trailer?
I liked it.
Yeah.
I liked the trailer. There's some shots in there that really there's what's the blanking on the guy everyone's names, but the bald guy, Dollar
Girl?
Bill.
Oh, Dollar Bill. Yeah.
There's some shots of Dollar Bill that made me think like, oh, maybe he might have a little bit larger role this season.
Yeah, is he flipping sides? Where is he going to go?
Possibly, and that's still when I found out that he was the same guy that played the priest on The Americans.
Yeah.
I flipped my lid
'Cause of the wig.
Because the wig.
Yep.
And the temperament of the two characters could not be farther apart.
Definitely.
And completely threw me for a loop.
Great actor, really good stuff. I love where this season is going because we now have like an internal warring faction instead of him warring with Paul Giamatti.
Right. We did kind of the same thing for a couple years, and now the tables have turned.
Also very Homelandish.
Yeah,
Right?
I never, I have not
Good
watched
old
the most
Homeland.
recent. I've not watched the recent season of Homeland. The
I
last
stopped
one
2 seasons
The
ago.
last one I
I'm
saw.
not caught up either.
The last one I saw, I really liked. The one I think it was set in New York.
Yeah, which was the season I stopped watching.
Yeah. I really liked that one, and I liked where they were heading for the most recent one. I just haven't caught up.
No, all good. So speaking of like an HBO kind of Showtime show here, Timothy Simons, who plays Jonah on Veep.
John H. Ryan?
John H. Ryan. Which just wrapped.
Yes, they just finished filming.
They just finished filming. I was talking to Sam Richardson because Sam Richardson's girlfriend works at Moo with Amanda. And so they were having the Moo Christmas party, and I only go to those things
if Sam's going to be there, so you two can hang out.
Yeah. And so I was like, yo, we're going to go to the Moo Christmas party. And he just sent like rapping Veep and a bunch of like teary emojis. And so I was like, oh, so that was his last day. And then, they were posting pictures of cakes and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So Veep has officially wrapped. I would imagine we'll probably see the Veep beginning of summer, end of summer.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know.
I would say after Game of Thrones.
That's what I was going to say. Is I feel like it would almost be a disservice to the show to have it airing concurrently with Game of Thrones, and also to HBO as a network, where it's like take advantage of your popular shows.
Correct.
Yeah, because Game of Thrones is gonna. So True Detective is gonna take us from January to April. Then Game of Thrones from April to June.
Yeah.
And
So
maybe
my
Veep.
guess is Veep and Barry will be paired together in the summertime. which I'm all for.
That's a comedy rock block right there.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm all for that.
I'm totally in on that one. But so Timothy Simons, the actor who plays Joan Ryan, is getting a development deal at HBO, and he's got this idea of like a comedy about assisted suicide.
Yeah, it's called Exit Plans,
Exit
which
Plan.
I love
Fantastic
that
name for a show.
Yeah.
And I've always thought that this would make a fantastic idea for a great like a great dark comedy.
Yeah.
And him playing the guy, like you can totally see him being this kind of dude.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a doctor that
Yes.
does this.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, right?
100%.
He's got that look. Is that a
does.
wrong thing
Nope,
to say about
I don't
a
think it
human
is. I don't think it
individual?
is.
No, I think that's fair. I mean,
No, I'm looking at a picture of his face right now, and I know the look you're talking about.
Yeah.
that look that's like, I'm going to help you die.
Right.
Yeah, it says he wrote it, he's starring in it, and executive producing it.
Yeah.
And this Californian man opens a small business after suicide's legalized in 2019 and is trying to help people transition into death peacefully while struggling to keep a hold of his crumbling personal life. In short, he's trying to figure out his life while ending yours. So
Pretty good tag.
yeah, I think it's a
good
tag.
solid concept for an HBO comedy.
I really like comedies that are kind of morbid,
Yes.
like have to do with death a
I
little bit.
100% agree.
Like I loved Dead Like Me. Did you guys ever watch
I don't
that
think I
show?
watched that.
my
I remember
God.
when it was on.
Yeah,
Yeah.
It was about people that were already dead, and basically they were assigned the job of being Grim Reapers and like going, and so somebody died every episode because it was
love
about
it.
them going to like get the person
Where
that's going
was
to
that?
die.
Which
I'm
channel
not
was that
sure
on?
what, because
want-
I feel like I watched it after the fact.
I want to
Okay.
say Showtime.
I
Okay.
feel like it was definitely not like your NBC ABC kind of thing.
Definitely not.
Yeah, it was Showtime.
Yeah, it was a Showtime series.
2003.
Yeah, Mandy
Oh,
Patinkin
wow.
was in it. It's the same guy that did Pushing Daisies, which is another like
Darkly weird show.
weird kind of comedy. But
I
yeah.
was just going to say.
Yeah,
sounds,
Brian Fuller.
Sounds
Brian
very
Fuller, exactly.
Pushing
Yeah.
Daisy-ish. Yeah. Brian Fuller, a very interesting character.
He
Yes.
is
Right?
definitely an
Yes.
interesting character.
Yeah. I out of this show, because like they investigate it in Barry, where he's an assassin and
Yes.
like the comedy behind killing people and death and all that kind of stuff. Which the one thing I like about that kind of thing is when you go into a point where you think people would probably die in real life and they don't, and there's some comedic way of getting them out of that. That's my favorite thing.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Because the stakes are there, but they're not like absent like you would in a CW show. But they're not
Sure.
Sopranos where you know that they're
going to
die.
die. Yes.
It's that middle ground, and I'm really looking forward to
Yeah.
this show for sure.
Yeah, I think it'll be fun. I mean, I especially you've got The Good Place, which is kind of a lighthearted take on death right now.
Yes.
And moralities and everything else, and then you've got going back as far as 6 Feet Under, which was the seminal show, in my opinion, about dealing with death in a somewhat humorous way.
Yes.
And that HBO kind of pioneered that style.
Yeah.
So I'm all for this. I'm all for Timothy Simons doing more fun stuff.
Yeah. So you've got rom-coms, you've got zom-coms, and now we've got death-coms. But we haven't really we need something to rhyme with that.
Yeah.
Because we don't have that. Because
Yeah.
death-com kind of sounds like
DEFCON.
DEFCON
DEFCON,
5,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Man, I don't know. I got to think on that one.
Yeah.
The pun is not coming immediately to
Yeah.
the brain,
No.
which is a bummer because it deserves a punny kind of title.
Yeah.
Did you ever read the book Catch-22?
I think so.
Did you read it?
I feel like maybe I read the Cliff Notes.
Yeah. I feel like it was a sign. It was
I
like
was
an
not a
optional
good student.
book. Yeah. When they started, when I found out what Cliff's Notes were, thanks my brother Ben,
Yeah.
he was like, you don't need to read books. I was like, come again?
My
Surely you jest.
My cousin went off to college and brought over every Cliff Notes book that he ever bought in high school, and it was a box.
Yeah.
And he was like, "Here you go."
Yeah.
It was like that. He brought that over along with a Super Nintendo. I was like,
Yes.
"Well, I'm never doing anything again.
Amazing.
This is great."
My brother had in his closet, he had a bookshelf. And
Yeah.
one whole rack was Cliff Notes, and then the bottom started becoming Cliff Notes. And my mother, who was a teacher, had no idea. He was like buying Cliff Notes on the sly, right? And she went into his room and opened his closet, and he had hidden behind like clothes and everything. It was like one of those
Oh my
deep closets that was
God.
hidden by clothes.
That's
my mom
amazing.
pulls the clothes apart, and she was like, and you could hear her scream, "What the fuck?" Like, because he had been pulling the blinds over her
Yeah.
eyes for 3 years of high school, freshman,
I
sophomore,
was going to say,
junior
the
year.
thing for me with like Cliff's Notes or Spark Notes or whatever is that I kind of figured out that I only needed to, if I wasn't enjoying the book, I figured out that I only needed to read a couple chapters just to get a sense of the tone.
Sure.
And then I could find everything I needed to write a good essay.
100%.
Yeah.
The problem
I still got A's.
You know where the dickhead teachers were? The ones that read the Cliff Notes and then
Yeah.
asked you questions that weren't in the Cliff Notes.
Oh, yeah.
And you're just
Yeah.
That killed me on Great Expectations. Still remember it to this day. The reason I ask is because you've got this George Clooney series coming out on Hulu.
Yeah.
Called Catch-22. And you've got like a cavalcade of actors. There's so many actors in this.
The cast on this
cast
is
is
ridiculous.
huge.
Our buddy John Rudnitsky is in the show.
Oh, yes, he is.
And Clooney kind of looks like he's doing his best Brad Pitt from Inglourious Bastards with the mustache.
That
right?
haircut, yeah.
I wonder if they talk about it like, hey, listen, if we're going to do a war movie, we might as well grow out the mustache. Isn't that a great idea? Because not only does he have an Inglourious Bastards, he also has the mustache in Fury.
Right.
So, and Brad Pitt loves that mustache a lot.
Yeah.
And now Clooney's kind of pulling it off too. I hate talking about first images of shows, but listen, Hulu got Clooney to do a TV show.
Yeah.
It's kind of a big deal.
That is, it is their swing for the fences move, like in terms of the high value,
Right.
celebrity driven shows, like
Sure.
like we were talking Amazon with Julia Roberts'
Yes.
Homecoming.
Eh. All Ocean's 11 people.
Yeah, Netflix's everything.
Right.
Like, I mean, they like everyone that's not Netflix is trying to get that one like huge splashy title,
Right.
Like the name above the
George
the title
Clooney
kind of
in
thing that they can
Catch-22.
get people to drive that subscriber. And
Because listen,
this is cool.
As critically acclaimed as Handmaid's Tale is,
Sure.
it's not the kind of show that people are like, oh man, I got to see what else is on Hulu.
Oh no,
they shut it off and they're like, I
totally.
can't watch any more of this.
Yeah.
No, and I love Handmaid's Tale.
This I know.
And it's definitely though, as you say, one of those things where it's a very heavy, thought-provoking dystopian sci-fi drama,
Right.
like very heavy on the sad.
Yeah.
And
It's a great Emma Fyffe
very
is
Very heavy on the sad.
Yes, very heavy on the sad.
Yep.
But it's and as you say, it's not a big name kind of thing. Like obviously Elizabeth Moss, right?
Yes.
That's her name.
Yes.
Is outstanding on that show, and she was great on Mad Men.
Of course, yeah.
But she's not Julia Roberts.
Correct.
Exactly.
And she doesn't give the performance of like, you know what's so charming about Elizabeth Moss is when she kills a guy with a knife during sex. Like, I don't know. I haven't watched a lot of Handmaid's Tale. I just imagine something like that could happen.
Right.
And Hulu getting this George Clooney thing, because listen, I know I read the Cliff Notes of Catch-22. I know what the book is about,
Sure.
right? There are a ton of names in the book Catch-22, which has always been, it's like, knock, is there so many people to talk about? Right?
Yeah. So can they pull it off?
Correct.
Is the real question, because it's going to be I think 9-episode series.
And it's World War II, so all these dudes are white.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a white dude show. So like getting your differences in guys has to be a very important part of the show, because you've got George Clooney and then a bunch of like young Hollywood actors.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you can very quickly fall into the territory of what one of my friends said about the first Pacific Rim movie, which was, I can't tell all the white people apart.
Right. 100%. And the second one, you just couldn't tell if there was a plot or not. Sorry, Scott.
Or the first one for that matter.
Yeah, exactly.
Sorry. And I'm trying to remember if I've seen the original film. It was directed by Mike Nichols in 1970. Buck Henry wrote it.
Buck Henry, huh?
Yeah, Buck Henry wrote the script. It starred Alan Arkin, Bob Balaban, Martin Balsam, Art Garfunkel.
Oh, wow.
Bob Newhart,
I
Anthony
do not think I have watched that.
Anthony Perkins, Martin Sheen, John Voight, Orson Welles.
Jesus
So like
Christ.
the cast back then was ridiculous.
It's like ordering every menu item off Taco Bell. You're like, good.
But you know what this one does have?
What's that?
Look how dreamy.
I mean,
Oh,
so
my
handsome.
Look how friggin'
goodness.
dreamy Kyle Chandler looks. I mean,
Show
I don't know
the
if you
camera.
I don't know if you can see this in the picture if you're watching at home, but
Yeah.
I mean, the man, whew.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, sign me up for that war.
Let me tell you a little story.
I don't know.
Kyle MacLachlan, my high school football coach did not look like Kyle MacLachlan. I'm going to tell you that right
Neither
now.
did mine, because we didn't have a high school football team or a college football team, because I went to little art schools.
I mean, that's the thing with Kyle MacLachlan. Throw him in a war pick. Sign me up. War movie, George Clooney, Kyle MacLachlan, and a gang of unruly young Hollywood type.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, he keeps getting cast as like the CIA analyst now,
Yes.
where he's got like a little bit of a gut and is like haggard from the
Yeah.
from
Not
the war.
first edition Kyle
Not this.
MacLachlan.
Yeah.
It's like the Dylan Panthers have lost 5 straight seasons.
Yes.
Connie Britton's left him, and he's just going to that burger stand
Yeah.
the whole
Yeah.
time. Yeah. I'm psyched. I'm looking forward to one of this. Do we have a release date on this one?
I'm trying to find it, and I don't.
Yeah, I don't think
It's next year, but I don't know when.
Okay.
Usually those articles end with a little closing statement
Yeah.
of blah 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 drops on
This
Hulu
spring.
on
Right.
this day.
Slated for premiere this spring.
This spring. Okay,
So
got it.
I think that sounds like we're waiting to find out when
Yeah.
Game of Thrones drops,
I will
and
s-
not putting it on that weekend.
Smart.
I will say that I like these pictures more than I like the Aladdin pictures.
Ooh, hot take.
boy.
Should I not say that?
Here's the thing: is I think Jafar looks great.
Sure.
Jafar does look great.
Like, hello, hot Jafar.
Yeah. That's
and
one sexy ass Jafar.
I know, and Aladdin and Jasmine look pretty great too. I was like, I kind
They're
of
just a
like
little older than I expected?
A little older than expected, but I don't. But I like the sort of interpretations of their costumes
Sure.
and whatnot. They might be a little too complicated.
They look-
Yeah.
They look like a Halloween costume, and then my mom went crazy with a bejeweler.
Yeah, that's what I was going.
Like Beverly
getting.
Goldberg and
Yeah.
the Goldbergs. She
Yeah.
took charge of the Aladdin costumes
Yeah.
and was like, here comes the jeweler. Bam,
The one thing we do have to
bam.
remember is we have not. This is not television news at all, but we haven't seen Will Smith as the blue genie
blue
yet.
genie.
He
Correct.
keeps teasing that he's going to be blue, and that
Yeah.
this is the human form that he takes on for a few scenes.
He kind of looks like the
Sure.
fat Jewish with that.
Yeah, a little bit,
Yeah.
a little bit.
Yeah.
I'm hoping it looks more than anything like they took a cue from the stage play.
Sure.
Which
yeah.
I don't personally think is the best call because
Yeah.
I've seen the stage play and it wasn't that
Yeah.
great. And they tried to add extra songs and make
Yeah.
give everyone an I Wish song and it just didn't work for me.
Yeah. I haven't seen the stage show.
But I saw it in LA when it was here a couple months ago.
Yeah.
And the 45-minute version at Disneyland
Oh,
was
the
great.
45 Disneyland was amazing.
But
Yeah,
the 2.5-hour version was like,
it's
"Ooh,
interesting
okay."
with the like Disney stage shows. And I don't want to go too far on this tangent, but it's like, yeah, because I heard that Aladdin was mediocre, and then there's really like unfortunate things with like what's it called? With Little Mermaid, where like the
Yeah.
production was terrible, but the script is actually good. It's actually really funny, and there's some really good songs that they added, but they just were like, you know, what says Under the Sea? Everybody wearing Heelys.
Because water moves you.
Yeah.
Makes sense. I
All
gotcha.
right. Well,
All right,
what are you gonna do?
We're going to go into some serious-ish news.
Yeah. Changing gears a little bit.
Because these were two like major stories that hit this week. So we'll start. So SMILF and Bull, one show I definitely watch, and one show my mom definitely watches.
You can decide at home
you
which
can
one's
decide
which.
at home, yeah. Are both under fire for some sexual harassment kind of stuff. I honestly forgot that Eliza Dushku was still acting. The last thing I saw her in was Bottle Shock, starring Chris Pine and Bill Pullman. But she was on the show Bull, and apparently the lead actor, who is Michael
Weatherly.
Michael
He was on
Weatherly.
NCIS
Yes.
for like 15 years
Forever.
or something.
And he is a professional jury selector. Talk about hot
It's based on
TV.
It's based on. Isn't Bull based on Dr. Phil? Dr. Phil is a
Oh, is it
producer.
really?
Yeah.
No way.
Yeah, like loosely
Yikes.
based on the career of Dr. Phil.
All right. Well, it's pretty awesome.
I remember reading that. I don't think that I'm making that up. I remember reading that.
Well, here's the thing.
Yeah, Dr. Jason Bull is a drama inspired by the early career of Dr. Phil McGraw.
Yeah, because Oprah met Dr. Phil when she was going through that cow trial.
Yeah.
And
Oh yeah.
and he was like basically her confidant.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, boom, he gets a TV show, and now it's the longest running show, whatever.
Yep.
And he created Catch Me Outside. How about that? Now, the thing that's crazy about this is what I don't understand is, okay, and it goes to the SMILF thing too, right? Mm-hmm. Because the girl who's running SMILF, Frankie Shaw, you need these like sexual, what were we calling them before? The consultant.
The intimacy coordinators that
Intimacy
they've now started putting on
coordinators, right?
sets.
Yes.
They started that with The Deuce.
The Deuce
was the first one.
because that show was a porn.
Yeah.
Yes, it was.
Yeah. And what you're getting on both of these things is like, if you don't agree with what I do with things, you're gonna get fired, which is it's wrong. Like you can't do that.
No.
And unfortunately, it happens way more than we think in lower jobs. But because this is Hollywood and this is TV and whatever, it's gonna get broadcast.
Yeah.
And Bull, listen, if Bull makes a sexual advance towards you and you don't like it, you're fired. Is basically the story of Eliza Dushku.
Yeah.
And she sued for what, $9 million?
She sued because she was slated to become a regular cast member, and so she ended up getting settling for a $9.5 million hush fee, which was what she sort of. Roughly what she would have made if she had stayed on the show for a few years as a regular. Les Moonves apparently personally oversaw the deal, which is why this is all coming. All this stuff's coming out to light because
Les Moonves emails.
CBS is doing this giant investigation, and SMILF is a Showtime show, which is owned by CBS.
Yes.
So I think that's why all of these stories are coming to light.
Yep.
And I'm sure they're not the only network that's having these problems.
Right.
We know NBC News has had an issue. I don't know what the issues are at ABC, but I'm sure there are some.
Got to be something.
And Fox, I believe, Ailes had some issues over the years in their ranks, various companies. So. I'm sure
the gift that keeps on giving, Roger Ailes.
But CBS is getting all this stuff like broadcast right now because it's all coming to light, and the Eliza Dushku story, and then the with SMILF, one of the
she sounds kind of like a bully. Frankie Shaw in this story.
In this story,
yes.
According to a lot of the crew,
yes,
it sounds and. Part of it sounds
no
like
pun intended. Bullish, bully.
Part of it sounds like inexperience coming to the forefront because you've got the veteran script coordinators and production managers that are saying that this feels more like an indie film where it's like, who cares if you haven't signed the nudity waiver? Like, this is what the scene calls for. Let's do it. Let's shoot it right now.
Yeah.
And it blew up to the point where one of the lead actresses is
Samara Weaving. She's
quitting.
fantastic in the show.
Quitting after the second season because of the work conditions.
Yeah.
And
what's crazy about it
sounds like some of the crew is not revolting, but they're definitely. It sounds like this is the kind of show that would really benefit from an intimacy coordinator and possibly a non-writing producer that could help make sure that the show is run on a tight schedule.
Yes.
The creepy thing in this story, though, is that they weren't supposed to have the monitors on, and Frankie.
That is exactly what it is. Is basically Frankie straight up said it's going to be a closed set. The monitors are not going to be on, and then they showed up and they were.
And unbeknownst to the actors.
Yes.
Yeah. And I think it's also really interesting.
Very voyeuristically uncomfortable.
Very uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that you're totally right, Macuga, what you were saying about like this happening on a smaller scale, on a lower level all the time that we aren't necessarily aware of, and it's an awful thing that happens to people working in the industry, especially young women, I feel like, who are on a job and you feel like you can't say no.
Right.
Because then, I mean,
and
if Eliza Dushku can say, no, I'm not going to do that, and they go, okay, cool, you're fired.
Right.
Like, how about someone who's nobody?
Right.
Yeah.
And you've got this thing where the story goes that she walked into the trailer when Samara Weaving didn't want to do the nudity scene and showed her boobs. Like, I'm fine getting naked. Why aren't you fine getting naked? But that's like if you didn't want to get naked on the show and I came in and I just took my pants off, like, look, I'm naked.
Yeah.
That's not how. That's a bullying
I was gonna
move.
say,
That's
and
a bullying.
that is like sexual harassment in of itself because nobody was asking to see her boobs.
Right. And
Yeah, look at 'em.
I think it's very interesting also the way that this is being covered because I think it was the Hollywood Reporter that had the full account of the story, interview with the script supervisor and a few other high level employees detailing everything that happened, and then they also then detail at the request of Frankie, such and such actor reached out and sent us this statement saying that like at the request, and they specified at the request of the accused, I'm submitting the statement in support.
Right.
It then got picked up by a few other outlets that basically wrote it up as this is a nothing burger. Like, yeah, the monitors were on for a split second and then they were turned off. It was an accident. And so certain outlets, and I'm not naming any names, The Wrap, wrote it up like this was not a story. And that's the stuff that really bothers me because they literally, and I don't know if that is spin coming from these other outlets or coming from Shaw's
Clickbaity
camp
kind of
or Showtime
Yeah.
or anything else, but they were right because I was alerting people to the story earlier in the week when it dropped, and someone pulled up the article from the Wrap and read it, and they're like, "This isn't anything.
Isn't a big deal.
This isn't a big deal." And then I went to
a big deal.
and compared and contrasted the two articles, and it was like, "What the hell are you doing?"
It
and
is.
if journalists are only going to report the way that the accused want them to tell the story,
That's a problem.
nothing is going to happen
Yes.
to fix it. And that's true not just in the entertainment industry, it's true in every way of life. And you're seeing very brave journalists and headstrong outlets that are willing to talk about these problems, not just in television, but in every industry, in every workplace, all across the country and even the world. But there are definitely some that are just like, well, they said it wasn't a big deal, so we're saying it's not a big deal.
Yeah.
And it just drove me insane.
And I think too, with the Frankie Shaw stuff, that there is a certain level of perhaps outlets again being sort of dismissive of it, being like, well, it's a woman who's asking a woman to do this, so it's not
how
a
is
big
it
deal.
wrong? Yeah.
But it is because it is.
It's wrong.
It is. It's wrong.
I get it.
It's because even if it is a woman who is asking you to expose yourself and make yourself vulnerable and be in this situation, because
it's a genderless issue at this point.
It's totally a genderless issue.
Yeah,
totally.
Yeah, and I remember when Girls was first starting. I'm pretty sure Lena Dunham was asked constantly about the nudity in their show, and it was very clear that like she was running the show, and there were certain actors and actresses that were okay with it and they signed nudity clauses.
Sure.
And then there were others that weren't, and their scenes were shot completely differently. Because it was either you were cool with it or you weren't. And I'm hoping that you would hope that that's always the case.
And you can figure it out. I mean, I directed a show in college that was very sexually charged. It was a
what was it called?
It's the Andrew Lippa.
Nope.
It's the Andrew Lippa version of The Wild Party. And so, and in it, I had asked the cast for the most part, like in Act 2, pretty much everybody was in their underwear. But it was one of those things where we had an agreement that was what it was going to be. And there was a scene in it where I wanted these two guys to kiss. And one of them was super comfortable with it, didn't care. He was a musical theater major. He's like, oh yeah, whatever. And then, the other guy involved, he was more of just like a dancer and in a bunch of a cappella groups, and they tried it, and then he said to me, you know what, I really don't feel comfortable with it. And I was like, then we don't have to do it.
Right. It's a pretty simple fix.
Yeah.
It's a
Clear
pretty
and
simple
simple.
fix.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what's not a simple fix is this Nielsen rating thing.
Yeah. Good segue.
You like that?
Excellent
Dang.
segue.
2019 coming in hot.
Yeah. Not a lime, not a bird, a segue.
A segue.
Yes.
So basically, CBS has a deal with Nielsen, like most major networks are, but we still there is no clear-cut thing when Nielsen has not fixed the problem, which is more coverage over certain things, right? Because in a similar story, right, Sling TV revealed the most popular shows, and I think they only have 2.4 million subscribers to Sling.
Mm-hmm.
And they, Fixer Upper was their most popular thing, which is a great show, and edged out Big Bang Theory, Family Guy, House Hunters, Diners, Drive-Ins, and Dives. That's Discovery getting 3 shows on Sling.
So yeah, clearly HGTV is high priority on that app.
Correct. So, but Nielsen doesn't have that reach yet. They don't have the technology. They don't have anything in there. And so these networks, why are we paying you hundreds of millions of dollars a year to do this?
The Nielsen model is very much old school,
antiquated
is a very good way to put it. Yeah. And there are a lot of other metrics that are now designed specifically for streaming services. There's companies that claim that they can tell you what the numbers are on Netflix, even though Netflix disputes it. They same thing with HBO. Yeah. All these companies that are very private about their ratings, and I think all of that is born out of the fact that Nielsen's been goosing the numbers for decades.
Oh yeah.
They're because they do sample data, they don't do actual live people.
No.
And so they're always going to be estimates. And so you've got these.
It's like bogus polls on Facebook in the 2016 election. It's seriously.
Yeah, yeah. And so they've been. Some companies have pushed back on it. This article talks about NBC admonished it publicly, and then cut a lot of their services out for stuff like CNBC because they still do CNBC in primetime, like when they run like reruns of Shark Tank and stuff, or Jay Leno's Garage.
Oh yeah. The most exciting thing of Jay Leno's Garage was that time he got in that wreck. Did you ever see that?
Yeah, that was
That's crazy.
Yeah.
He and Biden went in a they were in a race car once. I think that was kind of fun.
That was pretty
that's
cool.
funny.
But the reason they got rid of it for everything else on CNBC is because what Nielsen wasn't monitoring is that the majority of people that watch CNBC are at work in the financial industry
And it's just on.
during the day.
Yeah.
And there are no Nielsen boxes in offices.
Right.
So they're like, and that's something that they just like, well, we can't do that. Like, that's not part of our deal.
Yeah.
And so until
Just like, let's just general number.
Yeah.
How many offices do you think have CB?
I would love to see a scenario where you can properly gauge a metric for every single person that's watching it on any platform.
Yeah.
But now, especially lately with privacy
I was gonna
issues, it's
say,
like I don't want to.
And it's also just the way that people consume television is completely different.
Very true.
On top of the fact that Nielsen, and it's so funny that you brought up the like NBC kind of publicly admonishing them about stuff, because I feel like in a little bit of a way, and this is a slight spoiler for The Good Place, they sort of address that in the mid-season finale of The Good Place, where basically they're like, wait, no one's gotten into The Good Place in the last 300 years or something like that.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's very much like someone's messing with the ratings.
Yeah,
Yes,
exactly.
100%.
Exactly. Yeah.
Did you ever have a Nielsen box in your house?
No.
Neither did we.
My buddy Adam, our buddy Adam, his parents got it once when he was in college, and I remember him telling me that he was working on a random little cartoon that was I think airing at like 12:15 a.m. on Adult Swim or something.
Sure.
And he asked his parents to watch it because he knew they had a Nielsen box.
Yeah.
And they had like the highest ratings of all time in that history for the
One
premiere.
Nielsen box did it.
It just like spiked the ratings so heavily. And then they forgot like after like the second week, and they just went back to normal.
Yeah.
So it's like
Goodbye.
it shows you how scatterbrained it is.
100%.
Yeah.
I know, like no one. It's this shadowy math. No one really knows how you become a Nielsen person.
Yep.
How you stick with it. If they're really doing a proper cross section of the country. It's very strange. Whereas and now you've got now you have YouTube and all these services that show you real numbers.
Yeah.
And I think that eventually the advertising companies and the cable companies will all kind of come to an agreement that, hey, we're not actually getting 25 million people to watch our show, but we're still going to charge you like we were when we pretended that we did.
Yeah.
Sure.
Because our actual numbers are much lower, but now they're actuals. And we can now you know exactly how many
Right.
people you're reaching.
And you can also track the consistency of things like
couldn't
that.
there be a wireless signal you just send out?
Yeah, but again, with the privacy
Yeah.
issues, I think a lot of
yeah.
people are going to opt out of it, and then the question, as we found in the last few weeks, the question will be that even if you opt out of it, are you actually
Opting out
not
of it,
getting
yeah.
tracked?
Right. Yeah.
And so I think that there's a lot of problems with that as a possibility. I mean, like most people. Like when you set up a Chromecast and you're like, do you want to send your data to Google to help us fix bugs? And most people just hit no.
Right.
Like the numbers of people that aren't actually part of the sample is also a problem.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's
There's no
it's
quick
very
fix.
antiquated.
There's no
There
easy
isn't.
fix.
It's a messy situation. I mean, but when you have services like Slingbox that can actually track, like, hey, we can tell you what our number one show is, and Netflix
Yes.
can tell you. Netflix knows their numbers the night the show premieres.
Of course they do.
and they know it in so many
Yeah.
categories.
Yep.
Yeah.
So many demographics, and literally they can call a showrunner, like if your show premieres at midnight, they can call you by the end of the business day and say, hey, guess what, you're canceled, or
Right.
hey, guess what, we're going to pick up more episodes,
Yep.
because they know it that fast.
Yep.
And they know, and they can act on that data as quickly as they possibly can.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then sell that data to the Russians.
Burn.
Wah, wah.
Burn.
Speaking of Netflix,
Yeah.
it's the holiday time at Netflix.
It's the holiday dump.
Oh,
And they're just
Netflix.
dumping so much stuff on
right.
there right now.
You guys are going to judge me on this one.
Okay.
Okay. But I started watching Dumpling last night.
Oh,
which is the Jennifer Aniston movie.
I haven't watched it yet. I really want to.
I've heard it's a delight.
I tell you what, it is heartfelt,
Yeah.
loving, fantastic.
Yeah.
I'm only halfway through and I'm loving it.
Yeah.
How's
I
that?
love
How's
it.
that Dolly Parton song that's nominated for a Golden Globe?
It's great.
Yeah?
It's really good. Yeah.
I keep meaning to watch that because my friend Bex is in it, who is Pidge on Voltron.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I love this holiday dump. I also am an hour into the Bruce Springsteen special.
I'm about an hour 25.
Yeah.
Okay.
Man can spin a yarn, Emma.
I tried to
He can tell a
to turn
story.
it on again last night, and Amanda's like, I can't do it.
Yeah.
I can't do it again.
We were talking about it on live. It is not a sit down and watch all 2 hours. Now, if you're
Got
in
it.
the theater, I'm sure it's fantastic.
Sure.
But on Netflix, after like the first 20 minutes, like, all right, I gotta watch Jeopardy. I gotta watch something lighthearted.
Yeah.
Like most artists like that, he is like bleakly brilliant in the fact that like he tells these stories where he's just like, my father was my best friend and worst enemy, and I'm like, well, fuck, well, where the hell's this going?
Yeah.
Right. And it's really cool. It's a really cool storytelling show on Broadway, kind of a thing.
Yeah. Have you gotten to Thunder Road yet?
I've gotten to Thunder Road.
Okay. Yeah. I stopped right after.
Okay. Yeah, I stopped right after Thunder Road too.
Yeah. I was like, I heard it. That's great.
Yeah.
Now I know that we're going to like all the hits, and it's gonna be fun. But
do you have anything on like a Netflix or an Amazon that this Christmas season, part of the dump, that you're like, I have to watch
Well,
this?
I mean, listen, everybody watched that frickin' Christmas Prince last year.
Yep.
Gotta watch the sequel this year.
I will say, Amanda watched it. She said it was terrible, but she watched the whole thing.
Yep.
There you
so
go.
The first one was terrible, but you gotta.
Yeah.
I guess.
Did you watch the Christmas Chronicles, the Kurt Russell movie?
Oh,
You
no,
told me
I
that it was fun.
It was
but
fun.
I have not watched it, but I was going to get keys and instructions for taking care of Joe Starr's cats while he's out of town, and he was in the middle of watching it. And he's like, I don't know what's happening.
No,
but
yeah. It's
still watching it.
It's like a smorgasbord of like 7 different Christmas movies. It's like the Santa Claus meets A Christmas Story meets Elf. And there's like all these rules, and I'm like, I don't know. But I watched the whole thing, and my niece and nephew were entertained the whole time. So,
Well, there you go.
Yeah.
I've been wanting to watch the Santa Claus again now since you brought it up.
I do like the original Santa
Scott
Claus.
Calvin.
Pretty good
is a hell of a
movie.
guy. What are you into right now?
Well, I like I said, I'm halfway through Springsteen. I watched Relatable, the Ellen special. Loved it.
Okay.
Easily, arguably the best 20 million Netflix has spent in a while. And no. I was having this conversation with Snyder actually, because it's like for 20 million they could have made like a couple of like Netflix films that nobody would have seen,
Right.
or like another TV show that just would have been out there. Instead, they got like a really like a larger than life figure to make their return to stand up. And it's a solid hour. It is a solid hour of comedy.
I will say
it's
a lot of
really
times,
good show.
A lot of times when they tease, like if you scroll over and the tease thing on comedy specials on Netflix,
Right.
I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah.
But the tease for Ellen, I was like, well, this is going to be a watch.
It was a solid hour.
Yeah.
I noticed Tig Notaro co-directed the show.
Oh, nice.
And then I didn't catch all the names, but I know Tig and Neil Brennan were both credited as consultants.
Oh, okay.
So like,
Awesome.
because it's the first time she's been doing stand-up in 15 years.
Sure.
And she references, and they did a little bonus video after you watch it. Her encore was like a 10-15 minute Q&A with the audience.
Oh, cool.
So you can watch that too. And she references that she's been with Portia for 14 years. So Portia had never seen her do stand-up.
Oh,
ever.
wow.
But then
I didn't even think about
but
that.
then went on tour with her the whole time, and she was in the audience.
That's awesome. I like that. I
But,
like that.
Yeah, it was cool. It was a really good show. You told me you started Bad Blood, so
Yes.
I watched the pilot
Oh,
last
yeah.
night. It's a
And-
thumbs down for me.
okay.
It's a big thumbs down for me. It's just cheesy Canadian television for me.
I have not
So I
seen
watched
it.
the first 2
Okay.
episodes, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to give it a third. And I got like 20 minutes of the third. I'm like, I'm not going to finish this. I'm not gonna
It's
get through this.
Goodfellas light.
Yes.
And yeah.
Kim Coates is the star of it. Did you watch Sons of Anarchy?
No.
Okay, so he played Tig on Sons of Anarchy, and
Not Tig Notaro.
Not Tig
No.
Notaro, the
No.
guy like Tiggy, and
Yeah.
he was a very complicated character on this. But
Yeah.
this show, like at each turn, I felt like they were forcing scenes. It didn't make a ton of sense. There was a ton of time jumps. I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't know when
There's
I am.
so many
Yeah.
time jumps.
Yeah.
And
I've never seen a Canadian crime show, so I was looking forward to it.
right.
A show coming out that's on Hulu right now, but a show that's coming out on WG in America. I'm doing the podcast for. It's called Pure. It's about the Mennonite Mafia and the trafficking of cocaine from Mexico to Canada with Mennonites.
Ooh.
That
It's
sounds
awesome.
interesting.
It is
That does
really,
sound
really good. It was
really
like their highest
interesting.
rated show.
Wow.
And then because all the Canadian Mennonites got really pissed about it, so if anybody complains about anything in Canada, there's like, okay, we'll cancel. Sorry, we don't want to offend anybody. So WG in America got season 2, which they haven't aired yet, but they've already shot season 2. I got to tell you, Pure is a really, really good show.
Okay.
But this Bad Blood, I was like, Kim Coates, this is fantastic.
Yeah.
It already aired in Canada. I was like, I'd like to see.
No.
Yeah.
And I told
they
you,
filmed
check it out.
They filmed 2 seasons on Canadian television, and then Netflix picked it up. But this is the exact example of Netflix just picking up content,
everything,
just to have it.
Yes,
because it's like, oh, if you're a fan of Sons of Anarchy, here's a show with Kim Coates. If you recognize Paul Sorvino or Enrico Colantoni from the criminally canceled Person of Interest, and lest we forget Just Shoot Me, but yeah, I mean, it's like heavy hitting Canadian actors.
Yes,
funny to hear them arguing with Canadian accents,
sort of accents, like
French accents.
Yeah, someone
came in that was supposed to be the FBI.
Yeah.
And
where is the show supposed to
Montreal.
take place? Okay.
It's about the mafia that controlled the ports of Montreal, which apparently flooded all of New York and Chicago with all of the drugs.
Because you can get to the Great Lakes from the St. Lawrence
and
River.
so that was like the port the port of entry. And so Anthony LaPaglia from
I mean, like big names in this show.
Yeah.
And half the people have New York accents and the other half the people have like thick French Canadian accents. It doesn't equate.
The French Canadian FBI guy threw me off though. He's like, hey there, I'm here with the FBI. Hey, we got to take you in there.
It was me doing my buddy Tanner's friends from Canada accent. It really was.
It was like Dudley Do-Right. Like,
it really was.
Like, who can do the best American accent? You.
Yeah.
Nailed it.
There is like a ton, though, of the holiday dump on Netflix. So I know because my mother-in-law likes to watch Netflix, and we're just going to be like kind of by the fire, that there is enough Netflix material to really get through. Nailed It season 2 I started because I love a good baking show. I have started watching The Great British Baking Show, which has changed my life.
There's a holiday special for that,
I know,
too.
so I've heard.
Yeah.
But Netflix with the classic holiday dump, which is when 2 years ago, or maybe it was 3 years ago, when I first watched Making a Murderer.
Yeah, because it dropped.
Oh, yes.
It dropped at the middle of December,
Yes.
and then I watched it all on Christmas Day.
Right.
It was a weird Christmas binge.
Classic Christmas Day.
It was a weird Christmas binge. We opened our presents. We're like, do you want to continue that show that we started last night? And just 9 episodes in a row.
People have yelled at me that I'm an idiot for saying this, but I personally think that we can thank Making a Murderer for the morbidity of the true crime, as you say, crime porn, starting on basically everywhere as like these are the next documentaries.
I think it's Serial and Making a Murderer together.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I think what Serial did for the podcast world cannot be understated, even though season 2 was a disaster.
But season 3 was fantastic.
But no one knows because season 2 was so bad. I heard that it was great. But
season 3 of Serial is fantastic.
Yeah.
So it's amazing. She just follows the court system in Cleveland. It's really, really cool to show how bad
Cleveland is?
Well, yeah, that and how like crazy our justice system is.
Yeah,
that like
it's a mess.
It's a total mess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you said you watched Innocent Man?
I'm
John
done
Grisham?
with Innocent Man. Yeah.
Speaking of murder porn?
Yeah, murder porn, totally. But like the way John Grisham intros, he's like, if I would have written this as fiction, people would have thought that there's no way this could have happened. It's just kind of a story about like these two guys and DNA evidence. It's like it's not mind blowing.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like it probably does the glut of content around all of the coerced confessions and
there's always a coerced confession,
corrupt police forces and everything. There's so many of those stories being told right now that it probably does kind of feel old hat at this point.
Again, we're thinning the crowd as far as what we can and like what we're getting for true crime. I'm like, all right, I've seen it. He's going to get like, because the staircase, I was like, this is going to blow my mind because we were talking about it.
I know.
Fine.
Yeah. I also felt with the staircase that it really was like nobody had edited it.
No. It was 15 episodes.
Which is really weird because the actual story with the staircase, it was 3 different films.
Yeah, I know.
That had been recut by Netflix because like they filmed something and then they filmed like follow-ups and then Netflix pieced it together into a series.
Yeah.
And it was weird.
It was because I know that murder very well, but it was
because you were there.
No, I wasn't.
Emma was there.
Not because I was there because I read a lot about it, listened to podcasts about it.
Interesting.
But
She was
I was
there.
there.
Emma's last appearance on TV Talk.
If you're listening to this right now, please call the police.
She isn't Slytherin.
We're being held hostage.
But yeah, the way it was put together, like my roommate and I were watching it and we're like, this is just, it just feels long and like it's not going anywhere.
100%.
Yeah.
100%
Whereas
agree.
Evil Genius was short, 4 episodes.
To the point.
Crazy pants.
Scary.
Crazy pants twists
Yes.
that I did not see coming,
Yeah.
even though I knew the story a little bit.
Yep.
I was working in local news when that story broke, and I remember covering it, and it still went in directions that I didn't know about.
And it's not far from where I grew up in Erie, PA.
Yeah, 'cause Pennsylvania.
Right.
Crazy pants.
Crazy pants. Okay.
Speaking of crazy pants.
Crazy pants. Emma?
Voltron fans.
Oh my
Take it,
goodness.
Fyffe.
Listen. Okay, so.
Wait.
Yeah.
Emma-mation. All right, go ahead.
Okay, now I can start. So the last season of Voltron just dropped on Netflix last Friday, the 14th of December.
Now, did we know it was going to be the last season?
We did know it was going to be the last season. Yeah,
okay.
they announced it at San Diego Comic-Con this year that it would be the last one. I already knew just from talking to the showrunners and people who were on the show that it was going to be the end of it.
Okay.
Again, Netflix broke the series up in a weird way where essentially this became season 8, even though I think it should have really only been like season 6.
Oh, like half
Yeah,
because
because they did a couple that were like half
Vikings.
runs. Exactly. So anyway, and up to this point in the series, I absolutely loved it. I was a huge defender of it, and I liked the ending. I didn't love it. There was some stuff in there that, there was this love story in there that I felt like really didn't need to be in there. I didn't think it added anything to the story, and I felt that it made one of the entire character just be being worried about the other person, which is boring. And it's funny because I read some reviews where people disagreed with me. They're like, oh yeah, it made sense. These characters had matured and they totally earned this relationship and it felt very natural. And to me, it felt...
Kind of like my marriage. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah. To me, it felt very much like they were like, yes, this character has done a good job and we're going to reward him by giving him the girl he's been obsessed with for the whole show. And I think that it would have been more interesting if...
So where is the fangirl outrage on this?
Well, this is related to the fangirl outrage.
Got it.
So basically...
Or guy, whatever, fannies.
Fangirl. It's fangirls.
Oh, it's fangirl. Okay.
Primarily.
Got it.
So here's the thing is... Joaquin Dos Santos and Laura Montgomery, who are the showrunners on the show.
They've been in the Collider. Great people. Fantastic people.
Wonderful human beings.
Yes.
They, and along with Tim Hedrick, who was the head writer on Voltron for the majority of the show before he left to go be the showrunner on the new Fast and the Furious animated series that's in development.
Cool.
So basically, they, because they worked on Legend of Korra specifically, which ended with the 2 main female characters getting together and like riding off into the metaphorical sunset, like together.
Okay, got it.
Like in love with each other.
Sure.
Everybody was expecting there to be some sort of LGBTQ representation in this show, which there is.
Okay.
However, the issue is that in my opinion, these teenage girls are having trouble differentiating between them wanting LGBTQ representation and them wanting their ships to be canon.
Okay.
So here's the thing. I am part of the worst demographic of Voltron fans, actually, because I'm part of the shippers that ship who are like the most obnoxious, awful
So there's
people.
IP for this ship is what we're talking about.
I mean, basically, so this is basically what it boils down to is that these teenage girls wanted one of 2 male-male couples to get together, neither of them did.
Okay.
And, the animators, I feel like, weren't helping in a way with a couple scenes that happened between 2 of the guys in particular where, like, they had these really, like, nice, tender kind of friendship moments, but they animated their faces very soft and loving.
Got it.
And so basically, these teenage girls have now got it in their heads that Lauren and Joaquin hate the Voltron fans, and everything they did was a direct reaction to them being mad about these shippers, like yelling their outrage.
So almost like the Oliver Felicity thing.
Oh,
in
yes,
Arrow. Okay.
very much so. And here's the thing: animation takes a long time to get made.
Sure.
So the episodes that you saw in the last season. The
2
ones
years
that,
ago, maybe.
that happen, 6 months later, you get another season dropping on Netflix. that's not a direct reaction to things that you were saying. That's literally impossible.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
These episodes were written, as you say, about 2 years ago.
Okay.
And now there's all this stuff going around about like Joaquin and Lauren getting fired, and it's like, no, their contracts were up. Also, Joaquin is directing the sequel to Into the Spider-Verse. Like, come on, these are like, it's baffling.
So it's like Last Jedi hatred
Oh,
for.
it's exactly Last Jedi hatred.
Okay.
And here's the thing: is again, I'm not being like, man, that final season was perfect. I agree with every choice they made. I loved it. I'm like, no, it was pretty good. It's hard to do endings.
It is.
And so unlike Last Jedi, where I'm very much in the camp of I love Last Jedi, I really agree with all the choices they made. Even with this one, where I'm like, there's stuff I didn't like. I still. I'm not entitled to anything as a fan.
Yeah.
So basically, these people have gotten
That's a
it.
tough thing to tell people.
Yeah. They
These
don't
people
believe
have
that.
gotten it into their heads that Tim, who was the lead writer, left because he was arguing with Lauren and Joaquin, and because he wanted to make this one ship
Has anybody
canon.
come out on like Twitter and said anything?
No. Yeah.
Because they don't care about the fans.
Well, exactly, because they don't care about the fans. But also, I mean, I'm not even kidding you. So you referenced Last Jedi. So you know how Last Jedi had like a petition to
Yes.
erase
Oh,
it
yeah.
from Star Wars canon and start again? There is a petition which is Voltron Season 8. Release the original the showrunners wanted, which, by the way, Lauren and Joaquin are the showrunners.
Yeah.
Tim Hedrick was the lead writer. Different thing.
Okay. How many signatures does it have?
Where's the Snyder Cut?
Yeah,
That's what I
where's
wanna
the
know.
Snyder Cut? That's exactly what this is. Take a guess how many signatures.
4,000.
45,000.
Okay, in the middle of that, it is about 17.5 thousand.
Jesus H Christ.
Yep.
Let me just say, just real quick, if you're listening or watching, get a life.
Yeah. Go do something constructive.
Art is not created
No.
based on your personal
It's not.
desires. It washes over you, and you can decide whether or not you agree with it, or
Yeah.
whether or not you like the outcome. But this is not choose your own adventure.
Yeah.
No, it's not. It's definitely not. And as I say, like, I'm absolutely one of those people that wanted these two characters to end up together, and I knew they never would, even though I did, because I was
Sons of bitches.
because I was looking for it. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
and I think that's the thing that people need to realize when they start coming out and they start screaming things like, "Oh, it was queer bait" and blah blah blah. But it's like, no, you're looking for it.
Right.
Yes, I would have loved
This
it
is
if there
this
was
is
a
a situation
love
of
triangle,
like
but no.
the PC police going too
Yes,
PC,
going
right?
too far. That's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
And I get it. Like, people were mad with season 7 when they introduced the fact that Shiro, who's one of the main characters, was gay and had previously been in a relationship with a man, and then spoilers, they ended up killing off his boyfriend.
This
like,
is still animation, right?
yeah.
This isn't
Yeah.
like an episode of
No.
The Bachelor.
No, it's not an episode of The Bachelor,
Okay.
believe it or not.
Wow,
And
interesting.
that's the thing is, like, at the end of the day, the show's not a love story; it's a war story.
Right? Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Right.
and it stays.
Tell that to Pearl Harbor.
I know, and it stays very true to its themes of like
The
found
movie,
family.
not the
Yes,
actual
I,
Pearl
yes,
Harbor.
I got that. I got that.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's been this absolutely ridiculous controversy over nothing, and I think that. Again, it's one of those things where you have to recognize as a young person or as an older person, as I'm not a teenager anymore, but like recognize that like you wanting your ships to be canon is about you. It's about you exploring your sexuality. It's not about you wanting LGBTQ representation, but you can want both, and that's they're not mutually exclusive.
Don't go crazy.
Exactly.
But don't go crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you remember? Do you remember when South Park dealt with this with Tweak X Craig?
Yes.
So yeah, so I don't know if you remember this episode. So there are these two characters on South Park that kept getting shipped in a lot of art, like fan art.
Yes.
And so South Park did a whole episode about it, where like the school starts shipping them, and they're like, "We're straight, like we're not," and then they like fall for each other.
It's great.
And, like,
It's so good.
it's a huge meta
Classic.
commentary because unlike every other animated property on the planet, they actually can do stuff in real time.
Correct. Yeah.
They're the
Yes.
only ones.
Yes.
And if anyone ever thinks that it's not about you.
No.
Yeah.
They're not
It's
doing
not
anything about you.
you.
It's not.
No, but people who create TV shows, they don't hate you.
Yeah.
They really don't.
No,
They also-
they need your support and their love,
Yes.
but they're creating it for themselves.
But they
Yes.
also have to like work within a storyline and a group of writers and
Exactly.
everything. It's like,
Correct.
hey,
And you also have to work with what the people who are giving you the money to do your project are telling you have to do.
Correct.
Yep.
All right, before we get out of here, thank you again, Emma, for being on the show.
Oh, you're very welcome.
We'd be remiss if we didn't recognize Penny Marshall real quick.
Oh, yes.
Amazing talent, obviously, Laverne and Shirley and Mork and Mindy and Happy Days and, director of Big and Jumpin' Jack Flash, Renaissance Man, The Preacher's Wife, Riding in Cars with Boys, one of my favorite, A League of Their Own. I mean, it's,
Awakenings.
Yeah?
A League of Their Own is... an incredible movie, and she was an incredible actress. One of the greatest spoofs in SNL history, and just an overall, a Hollywood stalwart and somebody that paved the way for a lot of people. So she will be missed, gone a little too soon, and it's a sad day for people that love TV and love Penny Marshall. So.
Yeah.
Good stuff. All right, that's your TV talk for the final TV talk of 2018. Although next week we will have our end of the year awards. Thad and I have we've deciphered a couple awards and all kinds of fun stuff. So you guys can check that out next Friday. Emma, thank you so much for being here.
Oh, thank you very much
with your
for having
passionate
me.
plea for
Yes.
Voltron fans. I appreciate
Please,
it. Where can
nice.
where can the good people find you?
You can find me all over the internet wherever Emma Fyffes are sold at my name, Emma Fyffe, and be sure to check out that Schmodown Spectacular.
There you go.
It drops this afternoon.
Oh yeah,
we're going head to head.
Duking it out.
We
Interesting.
are. We're trying to keep Dagnino just away from everything.
At Bay.
Yeah.
Thadd Williams, where can they find you?
You can find me at Thadd Williams and yell at me about something.
There you go. So much content here on Collider. You guys can subscribe to the channel, subscribe to the podcast feed. Collider Sports, Collider Live, Collider Movie Talk, Collider Heroes, Collider Jedi Council, and so many more. Thank you guys for watching TV Talk all year. Thanks for having us get it back here on the air in 2018. We really appreciate it. I'm Josh Macuga at Josh Macuga, Twitter and Instagram, The Josh Macuga Show on YouTube. The Afternoons with Josh and Ken. Thank you guys again. As always, put down the book, pick up the remote.